You are listening to the Source Connection Podcast, an ongoing invitation to remember your true infinite nature and embody your unique human expression. By holding space for the kind of conversations that uplift, inform, and unite us, we are here to amplify the field of possibilities and explore the keys to creating the new. Hosted by Liz B. and Tarah Long. For more, check out thesourceconnection.us, Spotify, Odyssey, and YouTube.
All right, welcome friends. Welcome to another episode of The Source Connection. I'm Tarah, here with my co-host and sister Liz, with our very special guest today, Dr. Barre Lando. And we're going to hear more about all of his amazing things. And after we do our tune in, our slow down, our coming together, arriving here in the space together, and just giving yourself a few moments of rest and relaxation. So if you'd like to close your eyes, you can do that. If you'd like to sit or lie down, you can do that too. We're just going to be here for a few moments, just arriving here together in this now moment. So just feel yourself slowing down. Feel yourself breathing. Notice yourself breathing. Feeling yourself in your body and what that feels like for you today. And there's no need to change anything or fix anything. Just being yourself. It's coming to this moment together as yourself, bringing yourself. That is all you need to do. Whatever that means for you. So just feeling any tensions that you may be holding, just noticing and perhaps sending your breath to that spot or those spots, and just allowing ease and softness. And as you breathe, feeling yourself more grounded and connected to the deepest sense of you. Just tapping in for a moment to that deepest sense of you, to your source. And feeling that relaxation throughout all of your bodies. Just taking the time to slow down and pause. If you'd like, taking a few deep breaths all the way down into your abdomen. Allowing yourself to move around if you'd like. Just feeling yourself in your body. And being here now in this time and this space together. And taking your time, and you can open your eyes when you're ready and just be easy with yourself. All right, now we're ready. So, Dr. Barre Lando, thank you so much for joining us today. Dr. Lando is the founder of Alpha Vedic and the co-host. I'm so relaxed. I don't even know what I'm saying. The co-host of the Alpha Vedic podcast. He's a physician, a kinesiologist, and a master gardener. He's a 3-sport high school athlete, has studied every kind of medicine you can imagine: Western medicine, Oriental medicine, homeopathy, naturopathic medicine, chiropractic, kinesiology, and German New Medicine. He specializes in biological terrain medicine, clinical kinesiology, Japanese meridian therapy, and so much more. He's noted amongst his peers for his innovative clinical strategies, has an interest in creating a genuine science-based system of functional medicine. He formulates the advanced macronutrient herbal formulas known as Alpha Vedic and available to the public. He's also known for speaking the truth around false narratives found in traditional medicine in this country. So, and I've listened to you so much on the Alpha Vedic podcast, and I just, you're brilliant. So thank you for being here today. If there's anything else you'd like to share about yourself, you can do that. I know Liz and I would love to know, just as much as you'd like to share, what led you to, or what drew you to this work? I mean, this huge body of work in your life, and the continuation of that, and the curiosity to learn more and more and more and more. And just however you'd like to start.
Yeah, well, thank you both for having me here today. It's an honor to be with you, and always delightful to speak with kindred spirits. My journey is kind of a no-brainer, and that I was never academic per se oriented, and in fact, I used to be quite I don't want to use the word hate, but I didn't like school at all. And, the only reason why I got to college is because I had athletic scholarships. And so I was a full scholarship athlete. But, my temperament is such, I'm just more of a blue collar sort of guy. I like to, I played sports. I was an athlete. I farm, I garden, I work in my laboratory, I work on bodies. And so that did require me to go through a lot of school with quite reticence, but I did it. And, I did all my pre-med and med, and went through, 3 different forms of medical school: naturopathic, chiropractic, and did a certification at Stanford, and worked in the emergency medical services. So where I come from is just, my favorite saying that I learned from an old guy a long time ago that I did an apprenticeship with. He said, medicine nothing works unless it grows corn. So that's where I come from. Just very practical. I think we need to be grounded and understand that all the information that we get is not knowledge. You have to put it into experience. And that's just been my experience. And that's where you really start to learn, with that direct feedback from your creations.
Yeah. And what drew you to that medical exploration coming from the background of an athlete?
Well, to me, it was a logical segue. For whatever reason, when I got into college, just always trying to get that edge. I was always in the university library, studying books on, beyond even my curriculum in college of, just physiology and biochemistry. And I really wanted to learn how to use my own laboratory to get the athletic edge. One thing led to another. And, I wanted to know more and more. And so I shifted my whole emphasis from pre-law into pre-med. And that kicked it off, and wasn't planning on being a doctor. I just thought I'd be more of a physical therapist type or some such thing. And then next thing I'm, doing the emergency medicine And then after 5 years in that, I just felt like, yeah, that was good experience. I learned the best of what that system has to offer. But what I really wanted to get at was not available through them. And at that point, after my college football career, I went both feet into mixed martial arts and competed in that. And all of a sudden now I'm exposed to the Asian martial arts community and Chinese medicine. So by the time I got to naturopathic college after the Stanford thing, I emphasized Chinese medicine, classical homeopathy. And to me, acupuncture and the way I learned it initially in naturopathic college, it was okay. You learn some basic terminology, but you really don't learn acupuncture. I did, apprenticeships with old timers from the old country, where I really learned. But where I really learned even beyond that is in the martial arts, because especially when I segued into the internal arts. So you have to learn how to manage your external circumstances with your internal focus. Yeah. So that's where the essence of Oriental medicine, Ayurvedic, that's where it really comes to life, where you prove it out in your own personal laboratory. And I think that's what we're here to do is, have our experience.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because I went to acupuncture school and practiced for a long time, and still do a little bit, but I started acupuncture school in 2000. So I'm wondering what it was like. I mean, and then it was sort of accredited and, more mainstream, even though not totally. But what was that like for you? And Liz and I were talking earlier, and she had this curiosity to go go towards sort of the natural, medicines, back then, whenever it was that you did. I'm not trying to age you, but it's just what was that?
I age myself. Don't worry about it.
Age is just a number.
That's right.
Speaking of age, it's if you don't mind me making a little comment, I love it. I look in the mirror, I don't recognize myself, all that kind of stuff. But approaching it as more as a jock, it's like, okay, bring it on. Let's try to push the envelope and see what us geriatrics are really made out of, and you don't have to be sitting around sedentary and having your brain turn into vegetable matter. It's
right.
In fact, it should be the best time of your life, and it really is in a lot of ways. So forgive me your question. What was it like?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
I was just totally stoked. I was just really excited. It was like this new vista of like entering into a new world, and I just loved it. I was just so enthusiastic, especially segueing from a naturopathic campus from Stanford and working, in medical institutions that were so sterile. It was wonderful. We had a great campus, and it was and those of us that were emphasizing the Asian arts, we, did Tai Chi together every day. I think a lot of the schools are very much standardized these days.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened: chiropractic, naturopathy, osteopathy. Yeah. So I don't know what acupuncture training is like. I have a lot of friends, younger, that have gone through the training, and then they end up looking for, okay, how do we really do this stuff?
Yeah.
So, so I think it was a little less standardized back then, which was a good thing. I also had the benefit of a lot of that other generation that were the old timers when I was just coming up through that. They were carrying more the essence of, everything from osteopathy to Asian medicine. It was a little bit, more of a continuous thread. And then we also had interaction from people from those original cultures. And so it just, really brought it alive and made it more practical for me, rather than making it mystical and talking about, terminologies from different cultures that I wasn't brought up with. So, it became more tangible for me. So it was a wonderful time.
Mm.
It was a great time.
Amazing.
I want to go back to when you said, we talked about aging, and you said sometimes looking and not recognizing oneself, right? And what is this phenomena that we get maybe stuck in an idea of who we are physically? And what has that been like for you? I don't know if it's as much as a question or a comment, but I can relate to that continual kind of getting to know and see yourself in a new way, right? But it seems like, I don't know, I'm basing this comment on what you said, that there isn't a version of ourselves that it's what we recognize. And then as it shifts, we start recognizing it less and less, maybe.
It's, I think it's a very healthy thing. At least it was for me, going through the so-called aging process, because as an athlete, I was very body conscious, and, everything's about your body. It's about performance, how you look, and then of course, as a young man, you're, very concerned about all those things. And so, as you go through life and maybe, your 40-yard dash time slows down a little bit, your hair starts turning gray and all that kind of stuff. It's good. It gets you out of that, your external persona. You have to go elsewhere. And I think what I see with a lot of the folks that I grew up with, if they don't transition into that next level, then they lament about how their body feels, and then they go seek help in all the wrong places, and just accelerate the very thing they're in denial of. And another thing that was, and if you don't mind, I'll be slightly personal here.
Please.
When I was very young, like in grade school, I had more of a timid personality, and I was more inward. I like to just kind of wander off by myself and everything. But as you would have it in any school system, there was that little group of bullies. Now, fortunately, I wasn't targeted because I was a good athlete, even way back then. But I was definitely afraid of these guys, and will they turn on me next, sort of thing. And the way I handled it, I just, really stepped more into the athletic side because I realized that was a safe place. And then I kind of went to an extreme where I went from, I was a baseball player, could have gone on and played at high levels of that as well. But I started lifting weights and, eating and, and all that sort of thing just to bulk up. And what I realized as I got older and, started shedding that weight for different sports initially, because I didn't need to be 280 pounds anymore. But as I got rid of that body armor, I had to deal with those fears that I covered up with that armor way back when in the first place, even though I wasn't cognizant of that's what I was doing the whole time. So I guess moral of the story is you got to deal with your stuff sooner or later. And, if you kind of stick with it and, really get to the essence of who you are and why you're here in the first place, all those decisions you make, earlier on in life, you really start to understand what made you tick in the first place.
Oh, sweet. And for pictures of Dr. Barre Lando in that stage of his life, you can go to alphavedic.com and delight yourself. And thank you for sharing that. It's just so profound. Yeah, the ways that we cope. Yeah.
That like identity that we hold on to as we letting it go. And then of course Liz and I also talk a lot about, who knows what's possible, that we, humans could live a lot longer, right? I mean, we have, I think, in the past, and it's always possible. Again, not because we want to hold on to our mortality, but just because it's possible, and maybe we'll find ourselves in a world like that someday.
We have, go ahead. I have a little thing I want to say, but I can wait.
No, well, I was just going to say, what I learned in the martial arts community when I started actually working with some of these guys that were in their 80s, that came over from mainland China, and not to, idolize anybody from a different culture or anything. It's just that, they represented things that were lacking in the culture that I grew up in, introduced me to certain concepts. And now it's all, East and West have merged. But, what I learned from the horse's mouth is that the old technique for the ascension was to prolong your physical life, and they had means to do it. And in fact, once they got to a certain place, there's a little place way up in the hills. They called it the Valley of the Ancients, where a lot of these so-called immortals live, real folks. This is not mythology. And I've seen some things with my own eyes to kind of prove it out. But the reason they did that was not to live a long time, because they're afraid of dying, but it was to continue to create a continuous thread of consciousness without blacking out so many times in between, so that they could gather momentum for their final goal in life in the first place.
I wonder what those goals were. That's my curiosity. I'm like, oh, what was your goal? You want to live 1,000 years? Yeah, I like it.
Sorry, Liz, you go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Exactly.
No, I love that. And this is all about. It's expanding the possibilities. Two things came to mind. One was, we're talking about gray hairs, right? And why in some cultures there isn't really gray hairing. Like, I was interpreting for indigenous tribal people in Brazil not too long ago, and this people, the women were, in their 70s and 60s, 70s, and no white hair. So is it because they've never seen that, or because there's no construct of that for them, therefore it doesn't manifest? Or is it based on what they eat and how they live their lives? Is it all of it? I don't know. And we can go on that little tangent.
A lot of variables, but what I've learned about the biological systems is that they are not designed to age or degenerate. They're just not meant to. And also in my work, I was able to understand more in depth why that happens. And lifestyle and good exercise and dietary habits are great. We want to take care of our temple, but it's really not the main thing that's going to, bring us all the way home. And so I can tell you how I got every gray hair on my head. It's just, it's a matter of what we do to ourselves, the stress we put ourselves under, the world we live in, all the false paradigms that keep us in limitation and fear. And, mainly it thwarts us from our vast creative potential. And that is what creates the deepest levels of frustration in all of us. Because it's not the government or someone else that's doing it to us. We allow it, and we think that is power. And when you externalize in that fashion, then your cells have to play that out. There's no recourse. They have to. They become limited in their own natural processes, because we do it to them. That's what I see when I look under a microscope. So my hair didn't have to turn gray, but on the other hand, and 70 years old is nothing in the scheme of things, with what we're capable of. And then, of course, I would suggest, based on some information that I've gotten from certain, conduits that I trust, that there was a time when mankind did not embody in a embryological form. And we did not come in helpless, but we came in a perfect, capable young adult form, and did our, work, and consciously went out the same way. And in fact, at different historical times, a long time ago, we did not even have some of the organs we have right now, because they're unnecessary, for filtration, detoxification, because we didn't walk around in our own sludge the whole time.
Right. Yeah, now we need all of them and then some. That's just, so fascinating. So fascinating to think of the possibilities. I want to ask you about your, are you still seeing people clinically? Do you do that these days, or?
No, but yes.
Okay.
So, I retired out my clinic in about 99 and had a lot of years, that was like full on crazy. It's very international and, and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of live-in situations for people. So that was intense, but it was amazing. Then I moved back to the mainland because I was in Hawaii where I raised my family. And they wanted to go to school in Santa Barbara. They wanted to see what the mainland looked like. And they also wanted to go to Santa Barbara because it's a great party school and there's still good surfing nearby.
Totally.
Which are my main criteria too, when I was that age.
Right.
So,
surfing.
So we all moved there together, and I started up a little more of a private practice in Santa Barbara area, and then finally headed north to our first major farm operation up in Humboldt County in Northern California, and then about 7 years ago gravitated up to here. But that's how we, made the journey, and and I look back, and every single step of the way is perfect. Where we learned, a little bit of what we're supposed to get, so that we could hit the ground running here.
Yeah. The question, and there's so much there I want to ask too, but the question that I had was, when you were seeing people clinically, how receptive? Oh, can you hear me?
No, I lost the thread of your question first time around, so I just apologize.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. Yeah. I didn't even have a chance. I didn't ask it because I was just wondering if you're still seeing people, but you've seen so many people. I'm wondering how receptive they were over the years to, the different way of looking at things, like as you're going into more of the biological terrain versus the traditional theories and things. What was it like? Did you talk? Were you educating people? Were they receptive to that? Were they open to it? Now it's different, but then what was that like?
The original term physician means teacher. And I always took that very seriously. And the first thing I said to every client, even though they came in, and I had a very difficult practice. And, originally I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon once I made the jump to regular, conventional. And then, that all changed, due to circumstances along the way. But once I got into that level of health, I started understanding, what really makes us tick. And if somebody comes to see a physician because they want to be fixed, you're off to the wrong start. Yeah. So the first thing I told every client is, look, I can't fix you, I can't fix anybody. I do know how to work with you and, allow your body to speak in a very technologically assisted way, and, organic technologies. But you have to do the work. And so my kind of jock mentality took over again, because I always considered myself more of a coach, and I like that.
Yeah.
So initially, in that phase of practice, what happened is, because everybody came in with a death sentence, basically, and a lot of them have already been sliced and diced, and nuked and everything by the regular system, you didn't really have to talk them into anything. You were just the last resort. Yep. And so they were very motivated. Now, those people, though, that were motivated because of that situation, they're very special people. Because most folks just, pack it up. They say, I'm going to die, and let's do a little more chemo along the way. So, so I had a very groomed clientele from the very start. And through that, of course, every time I started thinking I got things a little bit wired, then I'd always have that client that would show up, that would challenge me the next. So when you're in the business, it's wonderful because you never stop learning.
Yeah.
And the moment you think you got something handled. In fact, there was a time, we had a research center in LA actually. And so I used to fly back and forth all the time. And I shared some stories that I was experiencing with my colleagues there because we had made great inroads into helping people with, these situations to the point where it became very, not just predictable, but an expectation. And then all of a sudden, I got a couple folks that, they didn't obey. And, I talking to my friends, they said, yeah, we're getting a few of those ourselves. And we're kind of surprised. It forced us to, go the next level, which was a good thing. But what we realized that, no, that's what really drove the point home finally to me is like, no, you can't fix somebody else. They have their own purpose, timeline, and experience, and it's none of my business. I'm just there to facilitate their experience and help them have maybe a more pleasant journey. And if they're supposed to stay in the body, if they have more time, that they need, then I supported that as well. So the last part of your question, as I continue on in this work, in bioterrain medicine, I still do it, but I don't really see clients here. Now I'm actually tooling up a little office here again with a new microscope and all sorts of stuff because I want to be more research oriented because there's too many things going on and my curiosity is getting the best of me. I want to know what's really going on. Because I used to, look at blood just hours and hours and hours every single day. And I learned a lot. And I want to see what things are looking like. Now I have friends in the business and I pick their brains, like the Bigglesons are awesome, as far as the microscopic work and everything. So, but I need to get tooled up here. But what I do is a lot of things at a distance, which I have ongoing folks that I help from a distance. And it's all with radiesthesia kind of techniques that I got involved with probably 40 years ago. But the radiesthesia has refined itself to the point, biogeometry, for instance, is one form of contemporized radiesthesia. And I'm really ready for it because, my experience has shown me that that's really the way things work in the first place. And even in my, when I saw people on the tangible physical presence, I realized that, we have to work on all those other subplanes in order to create coherence from the top down, because you can only do so much from the ground. And the last thing I'll say about that is that from the school of thought that I adhere to, if you are in the healing arts, there comes a time in your life where you have to take your hands off people for your own inner work. And also it allows you to kind of cut out a lot of the middlemen. And for people that are ready for that type of work as well, you can really go right to the source of things much more efficiently and elegantly, I believe. So I do work now, but I do it from afar. And so that's where I'm at now. Occasionally somebody will show up with my back just went out or something like that, or in fact, I just had someone the other day with a bladder infection, so recurrent, happening forever, and she's in bad shape. She's a good friend. I go, okay, come on in, and next day she's fine. I didn't, but again, I know how to create those real-time changes by manipulating the nervous system with the permission of the individual, and putting things in sequence so I don't have to try to outsmart a body. Never met a body I could outsmart. So, just like, an Apple genius, I kind of go in there and into the neurology and work on that level.
Okay. Question. I don't even know where to begin, but what's coming up is, can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you've seen come to life that others would think are miracles, that others could not explain, right? In this exploration that you've had and things that you've seen that other people in other fields or in other perceptions would go, well, that's not possible. I want to broaden the conversation to that so we can create a ripple around that of what is possible in that way.
Okay. I want to be careful here because when you start talking about things, all of us have a great tendency to get hypnotized by phenomena.
Yeah.
And you never do things for that reason. If you start dabbling into things that people think are impossible, it's only to explore, further levels of potential, not to impress people or to feel like you're all spiritual and everything all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
So,
right.
Totally aligned.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I have to go back to sports, I, played at a good level and we're nationally ranked and all that kind of stuff. And there's magic out there when all of a sudden the whole team's in the zone at the same time, just impossible things. You used to have no time left on the clock and, all this crazy kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of a crude example, but, when I was, and I'll try to make this short, these sort of things I don't share too much, but I was opening up my first private practice after, making the transition. And I was in a department store getting a sound system for my new office. And this woman walks up to me and says, she kind of knew everything about me. And I just figured, oh, she knows one of my clients or something. I go, okay, I'm busy and stressed because I'm going through all this, new setup and everything. And I go, okay, whatever. That was interesting. And then she shows up about a week later to my office. And I'm starting to suspect that this person's a nut bar because she's saying, okay, there's somebody you're supposed to meet. And she wants me to drive way hours away, out in the boonies with her. I don't even know this person. I go, next thing I know, I'm in the car and it's cold. It's in the middle of the winter in Northern California. And we're hiking through the woods. So we come out, it's still opening. There's a little hut there. And there's this old dude, he's in his 90s. I found out later. It's out there almost stark naked, just running around. So we, went, got introduced and everything. And it turns out she was one of his two wives. Now, not wives in a polygamous sense, but in a spiritual sense, because from this culture, and this person was chosen at birth, Indigenous Native American, it's not like, oh, I'm going to be a medicine man when I grow up there. No, they're chosen at birth. And there's ways that the old cultures used to do that. Yeah. So he was just checking out. Now is his last project. So he told me once I got to know him a little bit, because I spent a lot of intense time with him for a solid year. So anyway, we're sitting out in this old rickety, platform outside of his hut there, and birds are landing on him, and I slept over there that night, and there's orbs up in a tree and all this kind of crazy stuff, and I'm like, okay. And already at that point I was starting to read metaphysical books and everything, and Don Juan Castaneda, so everybody's fantasizing about shape shifting into a coyote and all this kind of stuff. So but it was more of a segue from the psychedelic, years into the, now into metaphysics, which was, more into the 70s and early 80s. But, okay, so there were some experiences, and I'll just share one because there was many. Yeah. My wife decided to go on a rafting trip on the Rogue River. And so she was gone, and I went up and saw this guy, spend a few nights with him while my wife was gone, and walk in. I go, "Hi, Grandpa." It's just what I call him, and he just kind of looks at me, and whenever he had kind of a look, you're kind of uh-oh, and so he sits me down right in front of me, faces me, and he goes, "Would you like to see your wife?" And I said, "Sure." And so he put a rock in my hand, and then all of a sudden you're somewhere else. I mean, you're literally,
wow.
they, in this situation, and I had similar situations, they weren't, people on the other end weren't aware of you, but you're there, just not vague or hallucinatory. I mean, just like me talking to you guys, you're there watching everything.
Wow.
And I was able to recount some experiences later, to my bride there that, to show her that I was watching her. So, things like that, there's time and space and everything. And, it doesn't exist in that realm where these, we'll call them shamanic types, know how to suspend their belief systems. Just like in a martial arts, you get really good when you can suspend your belief systems and operate on that other level. And then the reason why I finally got to Hawaii, in a particular place where I ended up spending a good portion of my life, is I actually moved to Fiji first for surfing reasons. And I had a thing there overseeing a health resort and doing emergency medicine for this one little village. But anyway, we came back to pack up and move to Fiji, and we were saying, well, should we explore some other areas? So we decided, okay, before we just raised our kids Fijian, which would have been fine, but we thought, well, maybe we'll get them the best of both worlds. And then so I was on Maui, and this was old Maui when it was true outer island experience. So I was with some friends, and they said, hey, there's a great little waterfall down there, and down this path. And so I walked down there in the morning. I'm just kind of meditating on this ledge with this 100-foot waterfall. And I'm looking at the hills, and there's this kind of, little vortex with the surrounding hills. And I looked down at the pool, and I'm like, wow, Grandpa used to take me to this exact spot. Now, he just passed about a month before, and 2 weeks before, he says, I'm out of here, I'm done. And he also helped me remember a lot of past experiences that we had together, which explained why he was messing around with me in the first place. And it was just, again, not, I think this might, no, it was the place. It's like looking at a snapshot, of a place where I'd been a bunch of times. So I got back into town, got to a payphone and called my wife. I said, we're moving to Maui. So that was it. And so that was kind of the first experience. Now I had some more along the way, but I think that's probably, well, one from the martial arts community was kind of cool. As I trained with this one guy, and he could literally tractor beam you across the room, and we're all kind of, advanced martial artists and things, in good shape. But he was just like 20 feet away, and just, and you're on the ground clawing, trying to stop and everything. He's just, So that's really the things that work. That it's not miraculous. It's not mystical. It's just understanding how things work. And when you farm, when you work on bodies, when you work in an alchemical lab, you're actually utilizing those principles so that now you can even cut out the lab, the farm, the biological medicine, and just start doing those things internally without any props.
Yes.
Yeah, the story of Grandpa reminded me of that book, of course, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and Socrates. And
I know Dan Millman.
You do? Yeah.
Another great. Sorry. Stop me.
No, please tell me.
Easters like to tell stories, right? So, I decided I wanted a van when I was moving, when we made the decision to move to Maui, and, we're living out in West Marin County in a little beach community. And I decided, okay, when I'm over there, I need a van so I can carry around my surfboards and camp on the beach and do dawn patrols and all that. So I start looking at want ads, and I find perfect, a V-dub pop top. I go out to this place in San Marin, and this guy comes out and is, we're doing a little test drive. And I didn't know this guy, never seen him before and everything. And I looked at him and I said, did you write a book? I just kind of, for whatever reason, randomly came, and he smiles and he looks at, and this was before the Peaceful Warrior, right before it came out.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And he just released it. And I never heard of it.
Yeah.
And he looks at me kind of with a smile and he said, "Are you a doctor of some type?" And so anyway, I buy his van, and and that was my surf vehicle in Maui for many, many years, a lime green van. And it talked to him off and on over the years. And then we moved back to the mainland. And then I'm sitting at a car wash, having my car washed. I'm sitting outside on this bench where people wait while your car's going through the thing.
Yeah.
And there's somebody, sitting next to me, and I look, and then he looks at me, and we both crack up. It was Dan, so that's, so I've reached out to Dan since, and we'll probably be doing a little talk together soon on the airwaves. But anyway, yeah, Dan's good. And he was, when I went there that time, because he was a gymnast and he had a trampoline in the back, and one of his kids was having a birthday party. So they're doing trampoline gymnastics and stuff. So, and met his wife. She came out,
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember that was one of my first books. That was one of my first
awesome book.
touches into, this.
Like
realm.
a lot of us, he had a collective of experiences, and that book became a collage put all into one figure, Socrates, but actually, he had many experiences. Yeah. So it's based on truth,
that makes sense.
but with
fictional,
creative license.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, and let's see, how do I formulate this question? With terrain medicine, and you explain it so elegantly to, maybe to people who haven't heard of it before. And how do you touched on it a little bit just now, but how does that relate to you, to spirit, and to this place that we're talking about now, our non-physical selves? How does that relate to you and your experience in recognizing the truth, if you will, of terrain, and what microbes really are, what they do, and all of that? Does that make sense? Is that a sensible question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, it's a great question because it has everything to do with everything. About terrain medicine, initially, I had to learn how to, learn a lot about microbes in a whole different way, get different types of microscopes, and, learn a lot of other things that go with it. It's not just looking at bugs, and learn how to test laboratorily in different ways and things. But what you're understanding there, and especially when you put it to practice and you see thousands of folks, which I did over a long time, you understand that the bioterrain is under other forces. It's a precipitation of those other planes and subplanes. And, I had an experience early on, again, in sports, forgive me, but because I was very scientific about my training, I always had everything on paper and mapped out. And it's like, okay, here's, this time of year, so I'm in this cycle to prepare for whatever. And I get it down on paper, and then I, go do it. But then in later years, I'd get it down on paper, and before I even got to the gym or out in the track or whatever, my body just started changing. And I'm like, well, this is weird, because it used to take me a couple months into the program to start. So I started connecting some dots. It's like, no, it's really about your intentions. It's really about desire. And when you get into something I am a big fan of, which is waveform mechanics, because it really helps you understand exactly how precipitation works in a way that a Western mind can understand, and then also explains all the so-called Eastern mysticism perfectly. You in bioterrain medicine, you would just like, working out or whatever, you do all the stuff, but then you're also working on these other levels. And then you see everything from microbes, tissues in the body, everything acting coherently relative to the things you've put into motion on other levels. And then it exponentially sped up when that individual you're working with was starting to ask different questions. And, you asked, how do you start off with people? The way you start off is, as far as you have to meet them where they're at. You can't just say, oh, this is how it works. And no,
Right.
there's ways to tune in and go, okay. And you meet them with where they're at. And then pretty soon, not too far down the road, they're exploring all sorts of different, information, changing partners, jobs,
Yep.
everything in their life that wasn't working and that they see was contributing to dysfunction that then had to play out biologically. They realize, I get it. So, bioterrain medicine, you're looking at the realm, you're looking at the subplanes, starting with pure consciousness and tracing down through those subplanes exactly how matter, including your biological experience and experience in general, how it precipitates. And we're supposed to know these things. We're not supposed to be ignorant. Mm-hmm. We didn't come here to be dumb. We came here to be co-creators. So, bioterrain medicine, along with martial arts and everything else we've talked about, really help drive that home as far as what makes this universe tick and how we are, in fact, co-creators. And we have everything in the world to say about everything. And that's the opposite of being arrogant. A lot of folks from different spiritual disciplines think that, oh, we're not up to that task, or that's blasphemous in some way. But it's actually arrogant to think otherwise, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now Liz's wheels are turning. Go ahead, sister.
I think that one of the most beautiful things that you're able to do is to bridge that physicality with that realm, and to know that it's all this one thing that's not separate, that's not out there or in here. It's like, how do we, from that perspective, then embody ourselves in the healthiest, excuse me, most glorious way.
Bless you.
I have a tick on my
They always
foot.
come in twos.
Yeah.
Now selling
threes, fours,
5, 6. Wait.
Oh, get some. You need a minute? I could. Just. No worries. No worries.
I've had a tick on my throat, and here we are talking about bioterrain and just all of that. And I'm thinking for the week, okay, what is emerging, what's healing, what's happening, what's detoxing, right? And then I'm thinking it's my own process. And then I hear from other people, they also have the tick in the throat and they have the pain in the throat. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I may not be the person. So yeah. I'm sorry and thank you. You bridge that so beautifully. In what is coming up for me is, because you spoke a little bit and used the word science here and there, and that's such a weaponized word for us nowadays in the world that we live in. So made me think of a Leonardo da Vinci quote where it says, study the science of art, and then study the art of science, right? And art being our lives and just all of that. So what is that word to you? What does it mean, right? When we're bridging all of this and this methodology and just coming from this different perspective where it's not separate from us and it's all this one thing.
Well, just like any religion where you have to be a believer, science in its present form is a set of doctrines that leaves out all the mechanisms of why any doctrine might have any truth in the first place. So the alchemists of old, and I like the term alchemy even though it connotes or conjures up wizardry and things in a lot of people, but it's true science because there's two sides to the scientific equation, quality and quantity. So we're into the quantitative side exclusively. So we're just looking at these little magic BBs that somehow stick together with covalent bonding and make the physical universe, which is absolutely ludicrous. So, science to me means not only understanding how to manipulate those mechanisms that precipitate matter and experience, but also the qualitative side is to be able to use your inner faculties to become continuous with those forces in the first place. Liz talked about physicality a second ago. Physicality is just the South Pole. That's all it is. So in the earth realm, the element earth, in the old schematic that alchemists use with the 4 elements, the earth element is the negative pole. And if you understand precipitation through the ethers, you realize you need a north and south pole to create a toroidal field, which is what this realm is. And then that also explains very elegantly how matter electrically is produced, as with consciousness as the progenitor of all of it. Food is the negative pole. The body doesn't build anything from food. It's a negative polarity that allows the same microcosm of our body to precipitate our bodies, our experience, no different than the larger realm and realms beyond that. So, again, science deliberately in its present form leaves all of that out, because if you come into those realizations, then you don't need anything outside of yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody to keep you safe. You don't need anybody to tell you what to do. You don't need anyone to heal your body. You don't need to make money. Forgive me. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay. Forgive me.
All right.
All good.
Okay. Gone. All right. So yeah, of course, it's very transparent now for anybody that's just doing a cursory bit of introspection that this whole thing's a scam. So, and that's why we're now have a new religion. They knew that the old religions, emanating from the Vatican and so forth, would have a shelf life. So they had to have something ready to go. And they had to have the new generation of heretics to persecute, which are the folks that have the audacity to say that you're a co-creator.
Wow. This is such a big conversation.
Yeah.
So beautiful in its own way. And here we are, right? 2020 and all of that. And the unfolding of that still lingers in that way. And the virtue of science.
And by the way, I'm extremely encouraged that, I don't sit around, we're talking about, past that, I think I had some perks by growing up when I did, and I'm glad I grew up when I did.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's not about the good old days either, because there was stuff going on in the good old days that wasn't that great. Yeah. So, the good old days are all lie ahead of us. And the fact that people are out on the internet discussing topics that used to seem pretty occult to some of us back in, back in the good old days. So it's all out in the open now.
It is. And speaking of, this isn't, like you said, is so occult anymore, but I find so many of my dear ones who are on the same page with so many of the things going on right now, right? But still somehow clinging to that viruses cause disease and yada, yada, yada. So, and I do my best to to say some, not to convince anybody, but just to, if they're asking me, well, what do you mean that doesn't cause, and so I do my best. But how would you put it, just to someone who maybe is kind of still holding on and wanting to kind of cross that bridge to the other possibilities, of that not being what we think it is. And just as succinct, you don't have to go into a lot of detail, because I just watched your entire presentation on contagion and viruses, and I can point people to that as well. But if you just were to paraphrase.
Sure. Well, again, I look at things a little bit more practically, and the reason why I came along to the realization that germs do not create disease, viruses do not exist in the way we think they do in nature, is because I had a whole slew of folks. Well, Bioterrain medicine, of course, teaches you different from the start. But now all of a sudden we're in the AIDS era. I'm in the mid 80s and I'm inundated with literally hundreds of AIDS patients.
Wow.
And, and in bad shape. And it's like a virus. And I'm like, okay, they didn't talk about HIV, back in the old German systems and everything, and or make a big thing out of viruses. Viruses were considered a bioterrain condition where microorganisms had to act the way we think viruses act according to the conventional theory. But what really drove it home to me is, with all these AIDS patients, and then later, everything from Epstein-Barr to Hep C, all these so-called viral etiologies. You can do the conventional testing. A lot of those people came in with their results, and I found out how to help these people fix themselves with Bioterrain medicine, and almost 100% of many all got better. Every single one of them. So, and that was with manipulating Bioterrain. But the curious thing is that those antibody titers for the alleged HIV, cause could be up, could be down. And I found them in other people that weren't sick. It had nothing to do with anything. There wasn't any clinical correlation. And empiricism, which is the true, nature of what science is supposed to be, you just observe. And I was able to observe in real time. And it's like, well, not only do these antibody tests not have anything to do with the virus, that's a theory itself based on another theory that there's a virus there in the first place. And then you get, folks like Fauci that were leading the charge back then. Selling the whole thing, the whole narrative, and a lot of the pro-choice people out there now are controlled up, because they are saying, hey, it shouldn't be mandatory. But then on the other hand, they're still keeping you in the virus box. So I don't know, did that answer your question at all?
Yes. Perfectly. I mean, it's experience, it's your boots on the hand. You're just seeing it over and over and over and over again is, to me, how can we refute?
And I'm working with great folks now who are really brilliant researchers and academicians, in a different way. So I rely on them, like Andy Kaufman folks, he had me Terrain movie, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's great because I don't want to, be spending my days and nights just looking at these research papers, which I don't believe in anyway, but he's very good at picking out the logical fallacies and everything. So, it's good. He just gives me the downloads, people like that. And then I can just go about my business, which is farming in bodies and laboratory, preparations and things.
Yeah.
And I used to do some labs also that on every single person that really through, what we think of as molecules and bodily fluids, I was able to mathematically extrapolate the electrical vectors that actually make things work from that chemistry. And what I was able to do also is on every single person, I had to measure cell debris. So when your body every single day, it's always throwing off old cells and making new ones. But when that cell debris titer was very high, I was able to see that, okay, the body's going through some degenerative process here. It's got a job going on. And also at those times when that cell debris was up, I was able to correlate certain regenerative processes in the body that were triggered by that cell debris.
Right.
And, that cell debris triggered manufacture of solvents and, to cleanse the body, stem cell production, exosome, endosome stuff that, Andy talks about. So, again, you see that in real time and you can kind of connect the dots. And I could elaborate on that, but that's kind of the short of it.
Perfect. Yeah.
We'll let folks plug into that talk and we can link that up.
Yeah.
If it feels of interest of that. You talked about gardening and you said the word elegant or elegance a couple of times. So I'm curious about your next venture, Off-Grid Elegance with Deb. If you could talk a little bit about that and what that is and what's the vision.
Well, it occurred to Deb and I that, and Deb's the real green thumb of the family. She's just kind of wired in there from birth, in that way. And so I always default to her as my main teacher out in the garden. We're a great team. I kind of do soil science. I have certain herbs that I've really gotten to know that I really like to plant. But when it comes to just stepping back and she'll just go, no, that belongs over there. Then I'll go over do biogeometry or something. I go, yeah, you're right. So, so it's a good team, but it occurred to us watching some things on YouTube that off-gridding didn't seem like that much fun if you're watching some of those episodes. And, we're walking around here all the time and it's elegant is the best word for it because you're in nature. We're not roughing it. We have running water, electricity. We live in a beautiful house, where it's not some country funky thing. And, and then there's also, that empowerment that you get when you provide for yourself.
Yes.
You're not waiting for the other shoe to drop because you know how to provide for all your needs. And so what we do here on the farm as well is aesthetics are very important to us. I don't
love that.
Well, anyway, so we want things to be beautiful because when you walk through our gardens and, this is a relatively new project, but we're making good headway here. But, you walk through some of my growing areas and there's little Kuan Yin statues and meditation areas. And that creates a resonance that even makes the plants grow better. And so it's about aesthetics. It's about a refinement of living. And for us to move back on the grid would be very harsh. We could do it. We're fine. We're adults and we can deal with anything. But it's just when you don't have all those things coming at you and people telling you what to do and electronic overlays. When I'm through with my business here, I can just turn off the modem and there's no cell reception. So elegant is really the way we should be living, and living in nature is the epitome of elegance.
Yes, it is. Oh, goodness.
And don't get me wrong, there's a great tendency, I think, for a lot of us in the off-gridding permaculture world where we're just as good virtue signaling as the folks,
right.
On the other side, oh, there's my chickens and I don't live in it, and it's so
totally.
That's not where we're coming from. It's just like we're here because we enjoy our lifestyle and we have a belief system that if more communities had these little small farms, and the prototype that we're creating to provide for their own needs and, their own energy systems. And I think life would be a lot grander.
Yeah,
for sure. We're headed that way.
Yeah, we are. Well, we are. And, there's many of us that are headed that way. We'll end with this question, Barre. At the very beginning, you said this was the best time of your life. Can you share why?
Well, the short answer is I feel like I'm in a place for the first time where I can actually start learning, like really learning.
Wow.
I don't know. And it's only because of all the poor decisions I've made in the past. And, they say, you want to know how you got gray hair. Well, it's a sum of all the decisions you've made in your life. And that's not a bad thing. It's not like,
No.
It's just that how else do you learn? Do you first day algebra class? Do you get the final exam? No, you have to go through, the mechanisms and learn. And that's what we're doing here. And I think the learning is really speeding up exponentially. I had a lot of experiences in the past that were a little bit hair raising, when I got into lawfare and including medicine, because, folks target you and things. And, so people that are coming up now don't have to go through all that. They can just learn by our mistakes, learn the things we did connect, and then take it to the next level. And so, a lot of us too like to quote people like Steiner and Tesla and Walter Russell. Yeah. And those people were great because they were individuals. They did exactly what we're talking about. And they did not expect a next generation of students to just preach their word like the gospel. It's incumbent upon us to keep the ball moving downfield. And I'm now, there's just less things that preoccupy you in your younger age. And now I feel like I'm free of a lot of that and can just start really having fun. And you don't entertain the same anxieties and all that kind of stuff that, you do in younger years. And it's just such a burden that's internally you feel younger than ever until you look in the mirror.
And see.
Well, beautiful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to come visit you guys. My friend Deborah was there not too long ago.
Deborah, who was, is it the same Deborah that was thinking of looking for property up here? Oh, okay. I'm glad I connected that dot. Awesome. Yeah, you're always welcome, both of you.
Oh, thank you. And then Sam and Isaac and Amanda, and it just every time somebody comes back, it's just like, that's that deeper breath.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And thank you for speaking in that way at the end there, where other folks can tap into the essence of that and know that that's possible for them too. We're so bombarded with so many contradictory views of what's possible when you get older, right? And people just think, oh, no, I just stories. My body's collapsing and I'm just old. And I'm just like, why do you think that?
Well, what you find out too in the internal arts is the body really wasn't designed to just operate on pure brute strength and youth. In fact, we never lose that in the first place if we learn how to, come from the inside out in the first place. You watch a deer bound up a hillside that's almost vertical. They're not using muscular strength.
Right.
And so, so you can be older, but if you're starting to get the hang of it, you can work all day and have more energy than you had 40 years ago. And just be a little more clever about things.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that. And where can people find you, Dr. Barre, if they want to tap into more of your work and what you're up to?
I guess alphavedic.com, ALFA VEDIC, Alpha Vedic. We just did a little play on the spelling there.
Yeah.
And we kind of also believe there's a little more alpha energy that needs to come into both sexes these days.
Yeah.
So that's our website. We're launching a new one very, very soon. That will have a good membership experience and a lot more interaction and content And also we won't have to be paranoid about what we say on YouTube, because we'll, be able to post things there. And a lot of our stuff has got censored. So a lot of our censored material will be there too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Getting flagged, doing good work.
I know, right? Thank you so much, Dr. Barre Lando, for being with us today and just delighting our listeners and us.
Distilling all of
thank you.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
And thank the two of you. I mean, you're the folks that are, getting the word out, and your contribution is amazing. And it's delightful to get to know you today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.